Have you ever wondered what secrets sleep beneath the misty hills of the Northeast, where the mountains rise like silent witnesses and the forests hum with voices that don't belong to the living? In villages swallowed by fog, the air carries stories older than time, of spirits wandering between bamboo groves and rivers that whisper names no one remembers speaking. Locals avoid the woods after dusk, not out of superstition, but survival. They say some places were never meant for human eyes, and those who dared to look never came back the same. Tonight we uncover the true horror buried deep in the Northeast, where legends breathe and silence screams. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. And subscribe to The Wander Warrior for more horror stories that'll keep you up at night. I used to think I'd seen it all. 20 years driving long-haul routes through the Pacific Northwest will do that to you. Rain-slick highways, deer darting across blacktop, drunks drifting over lane lines, even the occasional knife fight at a truck stop. Nothing really rattled me anymore. At least that's what I thought before that night on Highway 12. It was late October, around 2 in the morning, and I was hauling an empty flatbed from Yakima back toward Aberdeen. The rain had been coming down for hours, the kind that doesn't pour so much as it needles into your windshield like 1,000 tiny darts. My wipers were beating a frantic rhythm, and the cab smelled faintly of stale coffee and diesel. I remember turning the heat up just enough to keep the windows from fogging, but not so much that I'd start to drift off. The road ahead was a narrow ribbon of black, coiling through pines so thick they swallowed the light from my high beams. There's something about those mountain roads at night, how the world shrinks to the space between two white lines, how you can't tell where the forest ends and the sky begins. You start to feel like you're the only living thing left out there. I kept my eyes on the reflective posts as they whipped past, counting them just to stay sharp. 58, 59, 60. Then I saw it. A car was parked on the shoulder up ahead. At first I thought it was abandoned. The taillights were dim, almost dead, and the shape of it looked wrong. Too low to the ground, maybe a sedan or an old coupe. I slowed down as I approached, squinting through the rain. Then I saw movement. Someone was standing beside the car, waving a small flashlight. I almost didn't stop. Every trucker learns early on that roadside stops can go bad fast. People desperate for a ride, setups, scams. But there was something about the way the person moved, slow, tired, like they'd been out there for hours, that tugged at my conscience. I remember thinking, hell, it's pouring. They probably just need a jump. I eased the rig onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the dark, and climbed down into the rain. The cold hit me like a slap. The air smelled like wet pine and hot brake pads. My boots sank a little into the mud at the edge of the asphalt. The figure with the flashlight stepped closer. Turns out it was a woman, mid-30s maybe, wearing a soaked denim jacket and jeans darkened by the rain. Her hair clung to her face, and when she spoke, her voice was hoarse, almost trembling. "Thank God you stopped," she said. "My car died about an hour ago. No signal out here." I glanced at her car, a gray Toyota, hood up, hazard lights dim and sputtering. She wasn't lying about being stranded. I asked if she had jumper cables, and she nodded. "In the trunk," she said, already moving toward it. I followed, my flashlight beam cutting through the rain. That's when I noticed the first thing that didn't sit right. The trunk was already open, just a few inches, but she pretended to unlatch it. My gut twitched, that old sixth sense you get from years on the road. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. She pulled out a set of cables, hands shaking, eyes darting toward the woods on the other side of the road. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated before answering. I keep hearing something out there." I turned my light toward the trees. All I saw were the wet trunks of pines, spaced close together, dripping under the weight of the rain. The sound of water on leaves filled the silence. Nothing else. But I could feel it too, something off. like the forest itself was holding its breath. I shook it off, trying to keep things practical. "Let's get you started," I said, popping my hood. We hooked up the cables, red to red, black to ground. She climbed into her car while I stayed by my truck, watching the cables tremble in the wind. When she turned the key, her engine barely sputtered. Then for a split second, I saw something move behind her car. A shape, low, human-sized, crouched by the rear bumper. The flashlight beam from my hand caught it just long enough for me to make out the shine of a wet jacket, a face half hidden by the trunk lid. My chest went tight. I took a step back, scanning the darkness. The woman was still in her car, pretending to crank the engine again. That's when it hit me. She wasn't stranded. She was bait. Rain hammered the metal roof of my cab as I yanked the jumper cables loose, my pulse slamming in my ears. I didn't want to believe what I'd seen. Some guy crouched behind her car like he was waiting for something, but every instinct screamed at me to move. The woman looked up through her windshield, gave me a small apologetic smile, and started to open her door. "Stay in the truck," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let's give it a minute. Might have flooded the line." But she ignored me, stepping out into the rain again. She was calm now, too calm. Her earlier fear was gone, replaced by something colder, more deliberate. She walked to the back of her car, right where that figure had been, and bent down, like she was checking something near the bumper. I took a slow step toward my driver's door, pretending to adjust my flashlight. My boots squelched in the mud. The rain muffled everything, made it hard to tell if anyone was moving behind the car now. I tried to angle my light again, but the beam caught nothing, just the empty shoulder and the steady fall of water. Then I heard it. A soft click from behind the Toyota, metal on metal. Before I could even process it, the woman straightened up, met my eyes, and shouted over the rain, "Hey, can you grab the back cable for me?" Something about her tone. It wasn't a question. It was a command. I took another half step back, my hand sliding to the handle of my door. I'd been in a few rough situations on the road. Guys trying to sell fake tools at rest stops. One who tried to pull a knife when I refused to buy. You learn fast to trust the chill that runs down your spine. That chill was now full-on panic. "I think your car's fine," I said, forcing a grin. "I'll call highway patrol. Let them send someone out." She didn't answer. Instead, she looked past me, toward the woods. Her lips moved like she was mouthing something, words I couldn't hear. Then a man stepped out from the trees. He was tall, wiry, wearing a black rain jacket zipped up to his chin. He didn't run. He just stood there, maybe 10 feet from my rig, staring at me through the downpour. The beam of my flashlight caught his face. Mud smeared across his cheek, eyes wide, unblinking. He held something in his hand. A crowbar, I think. My stomach dropped. The woman shifted her weight, blocking my view of him. "We just need a ride," she said, her voice suddenly soft again, almost pleading. "Please, just to the next town." I didn't say a word. I lunged for the truck's door handle, yanked it open, and climbed inside so fast I barely felt the steps under my boots. As soon as I slammed the door, the man broke into a run. The sound of his feet splashing through puddles hit like gunshots. I jammed the lockdown and threw the truck into gear. He reached my door just as the wheels spun on the wet asphalt. His face was inches from the window, pale, twisted, his teeth bared. He swung the crowbar once, the metal shrieking against the glass but not breaking it. The woman screamed something behind him, but I didn't look back. I floored it. The trailer fishtailed for a second before gripping the road, and then I was flying down Highway 12, rain spraying off the mirrors, wipers barely keeping up. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the wheel straight. My radio was silent. No dispatch chatter, no music, just the steady thud of my heartbeat. I looked once in the side mirror. For a second I thought I saw them, two shapes standing in the red glow of my taillights, watching me vanish into the night. Then the road curved, and they were gone. But a mile later, when I finally hit a stretch with some cell service and called the state patrol, I glanced again into my mirror, pure habit I guess, and saw something that made my blood run cold. Headlights. A pair of them. Same distance back, same rhythm, keeping perfect pace with me through the dark. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The headlights behind me kept their distance, maybe 100 yards back. No more, no less. Too far to read the plate. Too close to be random. Out here, between Morton and Randall, there aren't many turnoffs, just logging roads and ditches. Whoever was back there knew that. I pressed harder on the gas. My rig roared up to 70, the engine whining as it pulled the empty flatbed over slick asphalt. Still, the headlights followed. Not gaining, not falling behind, just there, matching me. I picked up my CB mic and called out, "Breaker 19, any westbounders on 12? Got a tail on me, no ID." Static. Just static. I tried again. Nothing but white noise. Either no one was on this stretch tonight or something was jamming the signal. My mouth went dry. The rain was easing up, but the fog was rolling in now, thick enough that my headlights carved only a narrow tunnel of visibility. The road curved downhill through a canyon of pines. No cell service, no shoulder to pull off. I thought about grabbing my revolver from the glove box, but taking my hands off the wheel felt like suicide. Then the headlights behind me flickered, once, twice, and vanished. Gone, swallowed by the fog. For a moment I thought maybe they'd turned off or missed the curve. But before I could even exhale, I caught a new light. Just a faint glow ahead to the right through the trees. Like someone's high beams cutting across the forest from a side road. That's when it clicked. There wasn't just one car. There were two. The first had her, the woman with the fake breakdown. The second had been waiting ahead, maybe to box me in, force me off the road. It was a classic setup. I'd heard rumors about it, hitcher scams, cargo thefts, worse. But I'd never believed they actually happened out here. The glow ahead grew brighter, a vehicle easing onto the highway from one of those dirt spurs. My heart kicked into overdrive. I made a split-second call, downshifted hard, and swung the rig into the opposite lane, horn blaring. The 18-wheeler shuddered, tires screeching as I tore past the mouth of the side road. For a split second, my headlights caught a glimpse of the vehicle pulling out. A black SUV, windows tinted, no plates visible. They hadn't expected me to gun it. The back end of my trailer fishtailed again as I fought to straighten out. The truck's weight slammed me back into the lane. I glanced in the mirror. Now both sets of headlights were behind me. I was boxed in but moving fast. I pushed the pedal down harder, speedometer nudging past 75. The empty trailer bounced, the whole rig rattling like it would come apart. My phone sat on the dash, 0 bars. No chance of calling anyone. Then through the fog, I saw salvation, a green reflective sign. Randall, 12 miles. 12 miles of twisting forest road between me and the nearest light. The SUV began to close in. I could see its outline now in my mirrors, steady and predatory. The second car, the woman's Toyota, was hanging back, blocking any retreat if I tried to slow down. They were hurting me. Up ahead, the road narrowed around a sharp bend. I didn't have time to think. I slammed the Jake brake, felt the back tires start to lose traction, and jerked the wheel just enough to angle the trailer across the lane. The rig screamed, tires biting into the asphalt. The SUV didn't react fast enough. It clipped the corner of my flatbed with a sickening crunch, metal twisting, glass exploding. The force sent it spinning sideways into the guardrail. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I dropped a gear and floored it again, the truck surging forward into the mist. My hands were trembling so bad I could barely hold the wheel, but adrenaline kept me locked in. For 5 more minutes, I drove like a man possessed, eyes flicking between the road and the mirrors. The Toyota never reappeared. No headlights, no movement. Just me, the rain, and the rhythmic thump of my heartbeat in my ears. When I finally saw the first gas station lights glowing through the fog, I almost didn't believe they were real. The parking lot was empty except for one state trooper cruiser parked near the pumps. I I'd worked search and rescue in Washington State for nearly 15 years before that night. Mountain slides, lost hikers, suicides. You name it, I've seen it. I thought I'd built up a tolerance to horror. Nothing about the woods scared me anymore. At least that's what I told myself before we went up into the Cascades to find the missing survey team. It was early November, cold enough that your breath came out like smoke and the ground was half frozen under a thin layer of sleet. Our team of 4 left the ranger station at dusk, hiking the old logging road that cut through the foothills east of Mount Rainier. The call had come in 2 days earlier. 3 land surveyors working a private development site had gone radio silent. Their truck had been found at the trailhead. Doors open, GPS still on. The place was remote, the kind of deep forest isolation you can only get in the Pacific Northwest. The air smelled like wet moss and iron, and the silence had weight to it. No birds, no wind, just the steady creak of trees under the cold. The deeper we went, the more the world seemed to close around us, the fog tightening between the trunks like something alive. We hiked by headlamp, beams cutting through mist. Every so often I'd catch a flash of reflection, raindrops on leaves, or maybe a piece of metal left by the survey team. The map said their base site was 5 miles in. By mile 3, night had swallowed the trail completely. That's when we found the first sign of them, a red nylon tent, collapsed and half frozen into the mud. The door was unzipped, but there was no one inside. Just a few scattered instruments, a coffee thermos, and a pair of boots that looked like they'd been ripped open down the sides. The weird part was how clean everything was. No signs of a struggle, no animal prints, nothing. Just quiet. Absolute stillness. My partner, Ellis, squatted to inspect the ground. No blood, he said. No drag marks either. The others fanned out with flashlights, calling out names. Our voices bounced through the trees and died fast, like the forest was swallowing the sound. We decided to keep moving toward the ridge where the GPS had last pinged. As we packed up, I noticed something off about the tent poles. They were bent, but not broken. Bent outward, as if something had pushed from the inside. At the time, I told myself it was just the wind, the cold, but I kept glancing over my shoulder every few seconds, half expecting to see someone, or something, standing just beyond the fog line. By the time we reached the ridge, it was past midnight. The trail flattened into a clearing littered with felled trees. That's where we found their second camp. 3 tripods with survey gear still mounted, flashlights lying on the ground, batteries dead, and a handheld radio, its speaker cracked but still hissing with faint static. Ellis picked it up, fiddled with the dial. "Base, this is Delta 3, you copy?" For a second, just static. Then, clear as day, a voice came through. "Don't follow the lights." It wasn't anyone from our base, and it sure as hell wasn't any of the missing men. For a long second, nobody spoke. The static fizzed, then cut out completely, leaving only the sound of our breathing and the distant creak of trees shifting in the cold. Ellis looked at me, his face pale in the flashlight beam. "Did you hear that?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." He fiddled with the knob again, but the radio was dead now. Just white hiss, no signal. Our tech guy, Ramirez, muttered something under his breath and knelt to check the batteries, but they were fine. It was like someone had jammed the frequency. "Could have been an old transmission," our lead, Dana, said, trying to sound steady. "Echo or interference. Happens sometimes in these canyons." But her voice wavered. She didn't believe it any more than I did. The fog had thickened while we stood there, curling around our legs like smoke. I swept my light toward the far end of the clearing and caught a faint glint. Metal, maybe 20 yards ahead. I thought it was more survey equipment. Then it moved. "Hey," I called out. "Search and rescue. Anyone there?" The shape froze, half hidden by the mist. It looked like a man in a reflective vest, standing just beyond the tree line. Relief surged through me. "That's gotta be one of them," Ellis said, already stepping forward. "Wait," I said. "Something's off." The figure's vest was glowing, but not reflecting. It was dimly lit from underneath, pulsing faintly, like the light source was inside the fabric itself. And it wasn't the amber tone of a standard work vest. It was a dull bluish white, flickering through the fog like an underwater lamp. The man didn't move as Ellis approached. He just stood there, arms at his sides. When Ellis got within 10 feet, his flashlight beam hit the man's face, and every instinct I had screamed wrong. The man's eyes were open, but glassy. His mouth hung slightly ajar, and his skin was the same pale gray as the fog, too still, too smooth, like something trying to imitate human skin but not quite getting it right. Ellis stumbled back, swearing. Jesus Christ. That's when the figure tilted its head, just a fraction too far to the side, the motion jerky, mechanical. Ramirez shouted, "Ellis, move!" and shone his beam past the figure. There were more of them, at least 3, maybe 4 shapes in the trees, all wearing the same faintly glowing vests, all standing perfectly still. Dana's voice was sharp and low. "Back to the trail, now." We started retreating, careful not to break into a full run. My headlamp flickered as we moved, and every time the light dimmed, it felt like they were closer, shapes sliding through the fog, always just outside the edge of sight. "Base, this is Delta 3, emergency channel," Dana barked into her radio. Nothing, not even static. Behind us came a sound, soft, rhythmic, almost like breathing but deeper. A slow inhale that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The air around us shifted, heavy, cold, smelling faintly of metal. Ellis turned, shining his light over his shoulder. His voice cracked. "They're following us." I risked a glance back. He was right. The figures were moving now, gliding through the fog without sound, their faint lights pulsing in sync like a heartbeat. We broke into a run. The trail was barely visible, a dark line winding downhill, our boots slipping on the frozen mud. The forest around us seemed to close in, trees crowding tighter and tighter. Somewhere behind us I heard Ellis yell, and then the sound of him hitting the ground. When I turned back, my light caught him on his knees, clawing at something wrapped around his leg. A thin wire, maybe, or a cable. Dana tried to go back for him, but I grabbed her arm. "You can't," I said. "We'll both go down." He looked up at us, eyes wide with terror. Don't let them touch you." Then the fog swallowed him whole. We ran. There's no other word for it. We just ran. Our headlamps bobbed wildly in the dark, cutting through fog so thick it felt like moving through water. The forest seemed endless, every turn looking the same, every sound bouncing back like an echo from a place that shouldn't exist. Behind us came the faint crunch of footsteps, slow and deliberate. Whoever, or whatever, was following didn't need to hurry. They knew we were trapped. Ramirez was gasping, his breath ragged through the comms. "Trail's gone," he shouted. Damn it, it's gone." He wasn't wrong. The old logging road had vanished into a tangle of roots and brush. The markers we'd placed earlier, orange ribbons tied to branches, were gone too. It was like the forest had rearranged itself around us. Dana took point, sweeping her light back and forth. "We keep downhill," she ordered. "Follow the slope. The creek should run east." I nodded, but my brain was spinning. Ellis's scream was still echoing in my head. The sound didn't fade right. It lingered, stretched, like the trees were replaying it. As we picked our way through the undergrowth, Ramirez suddenly stopped dead. "Jesus," he whispered. Ahead of us, in the narrow beam of his flashlight, was another tent. Not ours, not the surveyor's. This one looked ancient, canvas yellowed, seams rotted, a layer of moss growing over the top. Its shape was wrong too, taller, narrower, like a hunting blind made for someone who didn't need to bend much to enter. Dana glanced at me. That wasn't on the map. Before I could respond, the tent shuddered, just once, as if something inside had exhaled. Ramirez took a step back. "We should..." The tent's front flap slowly lifted, revealing a shape inside. A man, or something shaped like one, stood just beyond the opening. His face was hidden in shadow, but his chest glowed faintly blue, pulsing in the same rhythm as those figures we'd seen earlier. Dana raised her light. "Sir, stay where you are. The figure tilted its head, that same unnatural angle we'd seen before, then stepped forward. The tent collapsed behind it as it moved. I shouted, "Run!" We bolted again, branches whipping our faces, the sound of pursuit close behind. But this time, it wasn't silent. I could hear the figures moving, feet crunching leaves, low electronic hums, and that faint, pulsing sound, like heartbeats made of static. My headlamp flickered, dying to half power. Ramirez's light cut out completely, plunging him into darkness. I heard him shouting somewhere to my right, then a sudden crack and a thud. "Ramirez!" I yelled. No answer. Dana grabbed my sleeve, pulling me forward. "We can't stop, you hear me? We can't stop!" We stumbled into a clearing, wider this time, with a rusted fire ring in the center and an old ranger cabin slumped to one side, half collapsed under years of rot. Relief hit me hard. At least it was shelter. We pushed through the broken doorway, slamming it shut behind us. The place smelled of mold and ash. My flashlight beam caught a scattering of old ranger manuals, a dented stove, and a shattered window covered in frost. Dana slumped against the wall, panting. "We'll wait till daylight," she said. But the forest didn't wait. Outside, the sound started again. Those slow, deliberate footsteps circling the cabin. One set at first, then another, then several. The wood floor vibrated under my boots. Something brushed the wall just inches from where I was standing. Dana drew her sidearm. "Stay quiet," she whispered. Through the cracks in the boards, faint blue light seeped in, pulsing in rhythm, moving around the cabin like a heartbeat. Then a soft tap came from the window. I turned my light toward it and froze. Ellis was standing outside, or at least something wearing Ellis's face. He was pale, dripping wet, his clothes shredded. His eyes glowed faintly, that same electric blue. His mouth opened like he was about to speak, but the sound that came out wasn't human. It was a layered, distorted voice, several tones overlapping. "Don't follow the lights." The same words we'd heard on the radio. Dana fired once. The glass shattered, and the blue glow winked out. But immediately more appeared, dozens of faint pulses moving between the trees, converging toward the cabin. "Back door!" I yelled. We kicked it open and sprinted into the night. The forest erupted behind us, lights flaring in every direction, beams slicing through fog. I didn't look back. I just ran until my legs burned, until the lights faded, until I couldn't tell if the blue flashes behind my eyelids were real or just seared into my vision. When we finally stumbled out onto the access road near the ranger station, the sky was turning gray with dawn. Only two of us made it. Dana and me. No sign of Ellis. No sign of Ramirez. They found us just after sunrise. A deputy from the Lewis County Sheriff's Office spotted us walking down the access road, mud-splattered, shaking, half-frozen. Dana could barely talk. I wasn't doing much better. They bundled us into the back of a rescue truck, wrapped us in blankets, and started asking questions we couldn't answer. They went back up the trail with a search team later that morning. I stayed behind at the ranger station, watching through the fogged window as the mountains swallowed them up. It was hours before they returned. When they did, their faces told me everything. No tents, no bodies, no survey gear, no evidence anyone had ever been there. The coordinates we'd marked on our GPS didn't match any ridgeline. They showed us 2 miles west of where we should have been. The road we thought we'd followed all night. The deputies said it had been closed for over 30 years, washed out in a landslide back in the 90s. One of them asked if we might have gotten lost, maybe disoriented. I didn't argue. What could I say? That I'd seen people who didn't move right, who glowed from the inside? That the forest itself had shifted under our feet? I just told him we'd followed the wrong route. Dana quit the department a month later. She never talked about it again. I stayed on another year, mostly desk duty, until the nightmares made it impossible to keep going. Every now and then I still drive out toward the Cascades, part habit, part compulsion. There's a stretch near the old logging road where the trees thin out just enough to see the ridgeline. It looks peaceful now, almost ordinary, but if you stop there right around dusk, you might notice something the locals talk about. Small, pale lights moving through the fog, not like flashlights, softer, rhythmic, almost alive. The first time I saw them again, I pulled over without thinking. My fingers went cold around the steering wheel as I watched them flicker between the trunks, same pulse as before. Then, faintly, through the static of my truck's CB radio, a voice came through. "Don't follow the lights." That's when I realized something I can't forget. We never found the survey team because they weren't lost. They were waiting. And whatever's still up there in those woods, it's still waiting too. I used to think I understood loneliness. I'd spent 10 years as a maintenance foreman for the state's Forestry Service, long weeks in the Washington backcountry, fixing fire lookout towers that hadn't seen a soul in decades. I knew what isolation felt like, but nothing, not the silence, not the storms, not even the nights when the only sound was my own breathing, prepared me for what happened at that tower above Lake Winoochee. It was late September, the shoulder season when the tourists disappear and the mountains start closing in. I'd been assigned to refurbish an old fire lookout built in the 50s, just a square box of timber and glass perched on steel legs, 40 feet above the tree line. It hadn't been used since the early 80s, but there were talks about restoring it for hikers. My job was simple: check the structure, make a list of repairs, radio in each evening. 3 days alone. The hike up took me 6 hours. By the time I reached the summit, my legs were jelly and fog was creeping up from the valley. From the deck, I could just make out the lake far below, a gray mirror ringed by dark pines. The air was heavy with that damp, earthy scent the Northwest wears year-round. The tower itself was in better shape than I'd expected. Floorboards warped but solid, glass mostly intact. Inside was the old Osborne firefinder, still mounted to the center post, a relic from another era. Someone had left a metal folding chair beside it and an old logbook half buried in dust. The radio crackled faintly when I tried to check in. Just static. No surprise, these mountains are notorious for dead zones. I made a note to test again at dusk. As the light faded, I cooked some soup on the camp stove and watched the clouds roll in below me. It was peaceful in that eerie, lonely way only the Cascades can be. No traffic, no planes, not even wind. Just the slow hiss of rain against glass. Around 9, I was writing in my field notes when I heard it. A knock. Not the creak of wood or a branch hitting the tower. A deliberate, hollow knock, knock, knock on the trapdoor beneath the floor. I froze. No one was supposed to be up here. No other crews were scheduled, and the trail gate at the base had been locked when I came through. I told myself it was probably a branch hitting the metal ladder. Then it came again. 3 knocks, spaced perfectly apart. I leaned over the trapdoor and called out, "Hello? Who's there?" Silence. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it through the hatch's crack, sweeping the beam down the ladder. Nothing, just fog swirling below. Then faintly, somewhere in the mist, a man's voice called up. "You're not supposed to be here." It wasn't angry, it wasn't loud, just matter of fact. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach twist. The voice wasn't echoing up from the ground. It was coming from directly under the floorboards. I just stood there, flashlight trembling in my hand, waiting for the sound to come again. But it didn't. Only the rain ticking against the windows, slow and steady, like nothing had happened. After a minute, I crouched and pressed my ear against the wooden floor. Nothing. Just a faint vibration. Probably the tower swaying in the wind, I told myself. But the air inside had changed. It felt colder, heavier. I climbed down 2 rungs of the ladder, leaning into the fog, shining my light under the tower. My beam caught the steel legs disappearing into the mist. The ground was barely visible, just slick rock and tufts of moss. No footprints, no movement. Still, I couldn't shake that voice. The tone had been too casual, too close, like someone standing right beneath me, speaking through the floorboards. I climbed back up, bolted the trapdoor shut, and tried to laugh it off. Isolation does strange things to your brain. You start hearing patterns in the rain, voices in the static. I'd seen men go stir-crazy out here after one night alone, but around midnight, as I was trying to sleep in my bag, the radio crackled to life. A low hiss at first, then a burst of static, and then, so faint I almost missed it, a man's voice again. "You're not supposed to be here." I froze. My hand hovered over the radio, afraid to touch it. The transmission had no call sign, no background noise. Just that same flat tone, the same sentence, repeated once more before the channel went dead. I checked the frequency. It was the emergency band. Nobody uses that channel unless something's gone very, very wrong. I turned the radio off completely and sat there in the dark, listening. Outside, the fog was so thick I couldn't see more than a few feet past the glass. The world had disappeared into white. Then something moved outside the window. It was quick. A flicker of motion, like a shadow gliding past the corner of my vision. I jumped, flashlight snapping toward the glass, but there was nothing there. Just my own reflection staring back, pale and wide-eyed. I told myself I was done for the night. I locked the hatch again, pulled the sleeping bag up to my neck, and waited for morning. Sometime in the early hours, I woke to a faint metallic rattle, the sound of the ladder shifting. Someone was climbing up. The sound was deliberate, boot against steel rung, slow and steady, like whoever it was wanted me to hear them. I reached for my flashlight, hands slick with sweat, and crept toward the trapdoor. The steps paused. Then came 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I swallowed hard, crouched low, and whispered through the hatch. "Who's there?" A pause. Then, in the same flat, emotionless voice, "You're not supposed to be here." But this time it wasn't coming from below. It was coming from directly behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell through the hatch. My flashlight beam slashed across the small room, catching the walls, the desk, the empty cot. Nothing. Nobody there. Just that voice still echoing in my skull like it was imprinted on the air. The silence that followed was thick and total. I could hear the tower's timbers creak, the wind pressing against the glass. Every hair on my arms was standing. I forced myself to move, to check every corner of the room. Nothing but my pack, my tools, my notes. The only way in or out was the ladder beneath the hatch, and it was still locked tight. I kept whispering to myself, "You're alone. It's just you." But I didn't believe it. I turned all the lights on and stayed sitting in the center of the room until dawn, flashlight in one hand, hammer in the other. My radio remained dead, no signal at all. When the gray light of morning finally seeped through the fog, I convinced myself to get out of there. I packed everything, clipped my harness to the ladder, and started climbing down. The fog was so thick it felt like moving through cotton. Halfway down, I saw something on one of the lower rungs. Mud. A fresh footprint. Not mine. Too small. Too narrow. Someone had been there. I hit the ground, turned in a slow circle, scanning the clearing with my light. No one. Just trees and mist. But the ground was disturbed, moss torn up, damp footprints leading away from the tower toward the tree line. Bare feet. I followed them. They led maybe 20 yards into the woods, stopping abruptly beside a fallen log. Something pale lay half buried in the mud. I brushed the leaves aside and froze. It was a work glove, an old one, cracked leather, the forestry department's logo barely visible under grime. I flipped it over and saw a faded marker on the inside cuff. W. Cardenas. Bill Cardenas. He'd been one of ours. Disappeared in 1992 while doing tower maintenance up in this same district. They never found him. My chest went tight. I looked up, and that's when I saw the figure, about 30 feet away, standing among the trees. A man, tall, soaked, his clothes hanging off him like rags. His skin looked gray in the mist, and his eyes were dark pits that didn't reflect light. He just stood there, head tilted slightly, watching me. "Bill?" I heard myself say. My voice cracked. The figure took one slow step forward, then another. I stumbled back, hand going for my radio. "This is Outpost 47 to base," I shouted, voice shaking. "I need backup at Winoochi. Repeat, I need..." The radio hissed, and through it came that same voice, layered, mechanical, too calm. "You're not supposed to be here." The figure stopped walking, but his mouth started moving, out of sync with the words coming through the radio, repeating them again and again, lips forming the sentence like he was mimicking it. I bolted. I ran back toward the tower, slipping on wet rock, clawing at roots. When I reached the base ladder, I climbed like my life depended on it. By the time I slammed the hatch shut behind me, I could hear the rungs below creaking again, something climbing up after me. I braced my back against the trapdoor, pushing with everything I had. The pressure from below was steady, strong. I could hear fingers scraping against metal, slow and deliberate. "Stop," I yelled. "Whoever you are, stop." Then, nothing. The pressure vanished. The hatch went still. For a long time, I didn't move. My pulse pounded in my ears, my hands shaking so bad I could hardly keep my flashlight still. When I finally dared to look, I saw a smear of muddy fingerprints across the hatch door, 5 distinct marks, pressed deep into the wood. And next to them, carved roughly with something sharp, were 3 words. "Not supposed to." I quit 2 weeks later, told them I'd had enough of the mountains. But sometimes, late at night, I check the forestry frequency on an old shortwave radio I keep in my garage. It's habit now, like scratching at a scar you know won't heal. Most nights it's just static. Sometimes I'll catch a ranger call from another district or a weather alert bouncing through the channels. But once in a while, always around the same time between 2 and 3 a.m., I'll hear a faint voice under the static. "You're not supposed to be here." Same tone, same cadence, every single time. The first time it happened, I tore the batteries out of the radio, but I kept hearing it anyway. So faint I couldn't tell if it was real or just my brain replaying that night. 2 months after I quit, a new guy took over my post. He was younger, cocky, thought my story was nothing more than a burnout's ghost tale. He went up to Winoochi Tower in late October for an inspection. He never checked in. When the search teams went up, they found his pack on the deck, his radio still on, humming low. But no sign of him, not a single footprint in the mud. The only thing left behind was a note scribbled in the tower's logbook. 4 words, shaky handwriting, pressed deep into the paper. "He's still up here." They sealed the trail to the tower a week later. Officially, it's closed due to structural instability. Unofficially, the locals say you can still see a light flicker on foggy nights, up high where the lookout used to stand. And sometimes, when the wind shifts just right, they swear they hear it too. 3 slow knocks echoing through the trees. I've never gone back. But every time I drive past Winoochi, I feel that same tightness in my chest. Like the mountain itself is remembering me. Like it's waiting. And I know, as sure as I know my own name, that if I ever climb that trail again, I'll hear that same voice behind me, calm, close, and certain. "You're not supposed to be here." You don't spend 20 years driving logging trucks through the Cascades without seeing weird things. Elk standing dead still in your headlights, fog so thick it swallows the road, drifters who wave you down and vanish when you stop. I thought I'd seen it all, until the night I took the old logging route past Kinnaul Lake. That road used to be busy back in the 80s before the mills shut down. Now it's just a cracked strip of asphalt curling through moss-covered trees, no cell signal, no lights, and no reason for anyone to be out there after dark. But I was behind schedule, had to deliver a load of cedar planks to a small yard in Aberdeen by dawn. So when my GPS told me the highway was closed for construction, I took the back route. It was close to midnight, drizzle smearing my windshield, wipers squeaking with every pass. The forest on either side felt endless, old growth so tall it blocked the stars. The smell of wet bark and diesel filled the cab, the sound of my own engine the only thing keeping me company. About 30 minutes in, I saw something strange, a single orange glow flickering up ahead. At first, I thought it was a campfire, maybe a couple of hikers. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't firelight. It was a lantern, hanging from a post beside an old roadside shack I didn't remember being there. The place looked abandoned, weathered siding, busted windows, half the roof caved in. But the lantern burned steady, swinging slightly in the breeze. I slowed the rig, headlights cutting across the shack, and that's when I noticed movement. A figure standing just inside the doorway. A man, maybe 50 or 60, tall and wiry, wearing a rain slicker and a hard hat. He stepped forward, waved his hand, and I instinctively pulled over. Out here, when someone waves you down, you stop. It's the rule. I rolled down the window. "You all right, buddy?" He nodded, eyes half hidden under the brim of his hat. "You headed west?" "Yeah, Aberdeen." He hesitated, voice low. "Road's gone out a few miles ahead, washed out from the last storm." That made no sense. The weather hadn't been bad lately, but he sounded sure, and there was something in his tone that made the back of my neck prickle, like he wasn't warning me for my safety, but testing how I'd react. "Appreciate the heads up," I said slowly. "You working out here?" He didn't answer. He just lifted his hand again and pointed into the forest, past the shack. "You should turn around. Don't go any farther. They don't like headlights on that stretch." Before I could ask who they were, he turned and walked back into the trees, the lantern light flickering across his slicker until the darkness swallowed him. I sat there for a long minute, engine idling, heart thudding in my throat. Then, from somewhere deep in the woods, I heard it, an echoing metallic bang, followed by another, like someone slamming a steel door shut. And then, faintly, under the sound of the rain, I heard something that made every hair on my arms rise. Voices, dozens of them, whispering. All at once, I leaned out my window listening. The voices weren't close, but they were clear, low, murmuring, all overlapping like a crowd at a distance. I couldn't make out a single word, just that rhythmic hum of people talking under their breath. It didn't make sense. There were no houses out here, no towns for 15 miles. I checked my mirrors. Nothing behind me but my own taillights reflected in the wet road. The forest loomed like a black wall. I told myself it had to be wind through the trees or water running under the roadbed, but that lie didn't stick. The sound was too human. Then the lantern went out. 1 second it was burning. The next, dark, like someone had snuffed it. My headlights washed over the shack now, but the doorway was empty. I was about to throw the truck into gear when my CB crackled. "Breaker 19, a voice said, calm and flat. "You headed west?" It wasn't any voice I recognized. I hadn't heard another rig on this channel all night. Yeah, I said slowly. "Who's this?" No answer, just static. Then the same voice. "Don't go past mile marker 32. That made my stomach drop. There hadn't been a visible marker in over 20 minutes. This was an unmaintained stretch. Whoever was talking had to know exactly where I was. I grabbed the mic again. "You from the yard? You got a name?" A pause, then quieter. "Turn your lights off." My heart started hammering. "Say again?" The channel hissed. "Turn your lights off. They see light." I stared out the windshield, the beam cutting through fog and rain. For a split second, I thought I saw shapes moving between the trees, tall, thin, shifting just out of focus. My first thought was people, maybe loggers or drifters. Then one of them stepped forward into the beam, and I realized it wasn't right. The figure was standing too still, too rigid. It looked like a man, but its clothes were shredded and dripping, and where its face should have been was just shadow. No features, no reflection. I slammed the truck into gear and hit the gas. The tires spun on wet asphalt, then caught. The CB crackled again as I shot past the shack. "You shouldn't have come back here." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just kept my eyes on the road, knuckles white on the wheel, while the forest seemed to close in tighter and tighter around me. And that's when I realized the whispering hadn't stopped. It was inside the cab now. The whispers crawled around the cab like smoke, low, quick, and everywhere at once. I checked the passenger seat, the sleeper behind me, even the footwell, half expecting someone to be crouched there. Nothing. Just the sound, slipping through the air vents, curling around my ears like it was inside the truck's wiring. I turned the radio completely off, but the whispers stayed. Louder now. A jumble of half-formed words. Turn. Back. Stop. My headlights cut through the fog ahead, but the road was getting worse. Cracked asphalt, branches scattered across the lane. I must have been doing 50 when I saw something blocking the road up ahead. A truck. An old logging rig, tilted sideways across both lanes, cab door open, no lights on. Looked like it had been sitting there for decades, moss on the tires, rust on the fenders. But my stomach flipped when I caught the company logo faintly visible on the side. It was the same one on my own truck. I slammed the brakes and the rig fishtailed, the trailer swaying wildly before stopping a few yards short of the wreck. Steam rose from my engine, rain hissing off the hood. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped out into the wet night and called out, "Hello? Anybody here?" The forest didn't answer. Just that deep silence that feels too thick to breathe through. My boots splashed as I walked toward the other truck. The driver's door hung open, swaying slightly. When I shined the light inside, my heart stopped. The cab was stripped bare. No seat, no steering wheel, no dashboard. Just empty space, metal peeled back like something had gutted it from the inside. I stumbled back, light shaking in my hand. That's when I saw the footprints. Bare feet, dozens of them, leading away from the wreck and into the woods. They were fresh, pressed deep into the mud. I should have gotten back in my truck right then, but I heard something. Music. Faint and crackling, like a radio far away. A country tune from the 70s. The same song my dad used to hum when he drove this road 30 years ago. The sound was coming from deeper in the forest. I followed it. Each step felt heavier, like the ground didn't want me there. The trees leaned close, the mist thickening. The music got clearer, then warped, slowed down, the notes twisting until it wasn't music anymore. It was a voice, a man's voice. "You're late." I froze. The flashlight flickered once, twice, then died. The next thing I saw was the glow of a lantern between the trees, the same orange light I'd seen back at the shack, and beside it, standing perfectly still, was the man in the rain slicker. He was closer now, his face clearer in the light, and that's when I saw the truth. It wasn't a face at all, just smooth gray skin stretched tight over bone, no mouth, no eyes. But I heard his voice anyway, inside my head this time. Calm, measured. "They're waiting at 32. And behind him, the forest moved. Shapes, tall, thin, hundreds of them, sliding silently between the trees, their heads all turning toward me in the exact same motion. I ran. Branches ripped at my arms, the rain turning into a roar. I could feel them behind me, too many to count, moving faster than footsteps should sound. When I broke through the tree line and reached the road again, I didn't look back. I climbed into my rig, slammed the door, and hit the gas so hard the tires screamed. As I tore down that road, I caught one last thing in my mirror, mile marker 32, leaning sideways, half buried in moss. And standing beside it, a figure holding a lantern, watching me leave. I didn't stop driving until I hit Aberdeen just before sunrise. My hands were still trembling when I parked behind the yard. I sat there in the cab for a long time, engine idling, staring at the fog curling between the stacks of lumber. It took a while before I could even breathe right again. When I finally went inside, the yard foreman, a guy named Dale, looked up from his clipboard and frowned. "You okay, Russ? You look like hell." I told him about the washout, the voices, the truck on the road. Tried to keep it simple, just the facts. He stared at me for a second and said, "You're kidding, right? That old route's been shut for years. No one hauls through there anymore." I told him I had. I'd seen another rig with our logo. He just shook his head. "We haven't used those markings since the 90s. You sure you weren't dreaming behind the wheel?" I didn't argue. I didn't have the words for what I'd seen, but I knew what I'd heard. That voice on the CB, the whispers in the cab. That night after I went home, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window with a beer, radio playing softly, when I heard something faint under the static. A familiar voice, calm and slow. "Breaker 19, you headed west?" I froze, beer halfway to my mouth. The radio was tuned to a music station, no CB, no external mic. The voice came again, a little clearer this time. "Don't go past 32. I yanked the cord out of the wall. The sound cut instantly, but the hum stayed in my head, like an echo you can't unhear. 2 weeks later, a highway crew found tire marks on that same road, fresh ones, matching my truck's model. They also found another wreck deeper in the forest, half buried in moss. Same company logo, same license plate format. Only problem was the serial number they read off the chassis matched one of our rigs that disappeared in 1991. The driver's name? Russell Ames, same as mine. When I read that in the local paper, I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at my reflection in the windshield, wondering what the hell that meant. Now, I don't take night runs anymore, haven't for years. I stay on the main highways where there's always light, always people. But sometimes, when the fog rolls in off the coast, I think I can still see that orange glow flickering through the trees, a lantern swinging just out of reach. And once in a while, through the static of my CB, I'll hear it again, soft, steady, and patient. "You're late." That's when I shut the radio off, grip the wheel a little tighter, and keep my eyes on the road ahead, because I know exactly what waits past mile marker 32. If you've ever worked search and rescue in the Olympic Peninsula, you know the woods there don't play by normal rules. I spent 12 years in that job, pulling lost hikers, stranded hunters, and the occasional idiot influencer out of terrain that eats people alive. I thought I'd seen everything. Until last winter, when we went looking for a missing teenager near Hoh Rainforest, and something started looking for us. It was late November, right after a week-long storm. The ground was a swamp and fog hung low enough to taste. The kid's name was Travis Malone, 17, last seen hiking alone on a trail that's barely marked even in good weather. His phone pinged once that morning, then nothing. Our team of 4 set out at dawn. Me, Lieutenant Reeves, a volunteer named Anna, and a local ranger, Joe. We had radios, thermal gear, and GPS trackers, though I'd already learned not to trust those too much in this stretch of the Northwest. The trees there are ancient, so tall they blot out the sky, so dense they swallow sound. The moss covers everything, even the rocks. You can walk 50 feet and lose all sense of direction. By early afternoon, we'd found the kids' boot prints leading down a narrow deer path. They stopped at the edge of a clearing where the ground was torn up, like something had been dragged. Reeves called in our position, but the radio crackled uselessly. Typical. We pressed on. The fog thickened as daylight started dying. Everything went quiet. No birds, no wind, just the steady drip of rain through the canopy. I remember the smell of rot and cedar, heavy and wet, like breathing through a sponge. Around 4, we found his backpack. It was propped neatly against a tree, not dropped, placed. The straps were clean, the zipper half open. Inside were snacks, a flashlight, and a small notebook. Anna flipped through it under her headlamp. Most of it was just scribbles, sketches of trees and rivers. But the last page stopped us cold. In shaky handwriting, the kid had written, "It keeps following me. Not an animal, "It looks like me," Reeves muttered. "Probably delirium. Hypothermia messes with your head." I wanted to believe that, but as we stood there, I realized something I hadn't noticed before. There were 5 sets of footprints leading into that clearing, and 4 of us standing in it. We all froze for a second, scanning the mud under our boots. Reeves crouched down, shining his flashlight along the impressions. They were fresh, clear outlines of hiking boots, the same tread pattern as ours. "That's not possible," Anna whispered. "We've only been 4 since base." Joe swallowed hard. "Could be the kids." "No," Reeves said. "His were smaller. Look." He was right. The prints were big, my size, maybe a little bigger, and they overlapped ours like someone had been stepping in perfect rhythm behind us. We turned as one, flashlights slicing through the fog. Nothing, just trees fading into gray. Reeves took a breath, forced his voice steady. "All right, let's keep moving. Stay close. We'll head back to the main trail and regroup." We walked single file, radios hissing with static. Every few seconds I thought I heard another set of footsteps somewhere off to our left, soft, deliberate, matching our pace. At first I tried to tell myself it was an echo, but the timing was too precise. Every time I slowed down, it slowed too. When I stopped, so did it. Then Anna whispered, "Do you hear that?" We all did. Somewhere in the fog ahead, someone was calling for help. It was faint, but clear. A man's voice shouting, "Over here, please." We broke into a jog, moving toward it. My heart was pounding, adrenaline cutting through the cold. The voice grew louder, closer. Then we entered another clearing. It was empty. The voice came again, this time from behind us. "Over here!" Reeves spun around, flashlight cutting through mist, eyes wide. "Malone?" he called out. "Is that you?" No answer, just rain dripping from the ferns. Joe stepped forward, scanning the tree line. "Sounds bouncing off the canopy," he muttered. "We're chasing echoes." That's when I saw it, just for a second. Something pale moving between the trees. Looked like a person, tall and thin, wearing a gray jacket like ours. I lifted my light. It stopped dead still, halfway behind a trunk. Then I noticed something wrong. Its head was tilted too far, almost resting on its shoulder. "Hey!" I shouted. "Show me your hands!" It stepped forward slow, into the open. My stomach dropped. It was me. Same jacket, same pack, same mud on the knees. But its face, God, its face looked wrong, like someone had stretched skin over bone and forgotten to give it expression. Its mouth was just a faint slit, not moving, yet I could hear the voice again. My voice this time, coming from the trees around us. "Over here," it said. Reeves raised his rifle. "Back up. Everyone back up." The thing tilted its head, like it was studying us. Then, in perfect sync, it smiled. And all around us, from the fog, more voices started whispering the same words. "Over here, over here, over here, here." Over. Reeves fired first. The gunshot cracked through the trees and echoed so hard it felt like it hit me in the chest. The thing that looked like me didn't fall. It didn't even flinch. It just stood there, head cocked, as the echo of the shot faded into the mist. Then, in one impossible movement, it blinked out of the flashlight's beam. Gone. Anna screamed. Joe cursed and spun around, flashlight jerking wildly. "It's behind us!" he shouted. I turned, my own light catching glimpses of movement. Shapes slipping between the trees, fast and silent. Each time the beam passed, I saw flashes of faces that looked familiar. Our faces, eyes dull and mouths slack, skin too smooth, too pale. "Go," Reeves barked. "Back to the trail. Now." We ran. Branches tore at our jackets. Mud sucked at our boots. The rain had turned into a sheet of water, the kind that makes the forest roar. My radio crackled, spitting static. Then, my own voice. "Stop running," it said. "You're going the wrong way." I ripped it off my vest and threw it into the mud. Ahead of me, Anna stumbled and fell. I grabbed her arm, hauled her up, and caught a flash of movement right beside us, something crawling out from behind a log. It was Reeves, or at least it looked like him. His face was blank, eyes wide and milky, mouth opening too far as a soft hiss poured out. Behind him, another version of Joe stepped forward, and another. All of them watching us, all of them smiling. "Keep moving," the real Reeves yelled. He was bleeding from the shoulder. Branch, bullet, I don't know, but he didn't slow down. We broke through a curtain of ferns and stumbled onto a section of trail. For a moment I thought we were safe until I noticed the ground. There were footprints everywhere, dozens of them, all fresh. Then I saw the notebook, the one from Travis's backpack. It was lying open in the middle of the path, soaked but legible. A new line had been written at the bottom of the last page, in the same shaky handwriting. "It wears you." That's when the fog behind us began to move. Not drift, move, like it was breathing. Shapes swelled out of it, human-sized, walking without sound, their outlines flickering like bad reflections in water. Anna screamed again, bolting down the path. Joe went after her. I tried to follow, but Reeves grabbed my arm, his eyes wide with terror. "Don't," he said. "That's not them." Before I could ask what he meant, we heard Anna's voice calling from ahead. "This way, hurry." But it was wrong. The pitch was off, like she was talking through water. Reeves shook his head. "That's not her," he whispered. Then something reached out of the fog and pulled him backward. I didn't even have time to yell. 1 second he was there, the next he was gone, the fog folding around him like a curtain closing. I ran. I don't know how long. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. The whispers chased me the whole way, always just out of sight, repeating the same words and voices that sounded like mine, like Anna's, like everyone I'd ever known. "Over here. Over here. Over here." When I finally saw the beam from our base camp lanterns flickering through the trees, I nearly collapsed from relief. I stumbled into the clearing, gasping, covered in mud. But when the medics came running, one of them froze mid-step and went pale. He pointed at me and said, "Didn't you just come in with the first group?" I turned toward the tents, and there, sitting by the fire, was me, covered in dirt, eyes blank, smiling. I don't remember screaming, but they told me later that I did, loud enough to wake half the base camp. I tried to rush the fire pit, tried to grab the thing sitting there, but the others held me back. The version of me by the fire just sat still. It didn't speak, didn't blink. One of the paramedics tried to ask it questions, but it didn't even turn its head. When they finally stepped closer, the thing tilted forward, slow and stiff, like a puppet whose strings were being pulled. Then it collapsed face first into the dirt. The smell hit first, damp, metallic, rotten. When they rolled it over, it wasn't really me anymore. The clothes were right, but the skin looked like bark, thin, gray, flaking. The face had no features left, like it had been carved out of wet wood and left to dry. I backed away, shaking. Reeves was gone. Anna and Joe were still missing. They packed me into a truck and drove me down to Port Angeles for questioning. I tried explaining what happened, the footprints, the voice, the thing that wore my face. But the ranger captain just listened, nodded, and wrote disoriented due to exposure on his report. That night at the hospital, I woke up to my room phone ringing. I answered on instinct. A man's voice said, "You made it out." I froze. "Who is this?" He didn't answer right away. Then softly, almost like a sigh, "It wears you." Click. The line went dead. They found Anna's pack 2 weeks later, 10 miles from where we'd last seen her. Inside was her flashlight, still working, and her radio. The call log showed one outgoing transmission, the same time my hospital phone had rung. The audio file was short, just breathing, then a whisper. "Over here." The search was officially closed after that. No trace of the others. I moved away from the peninsula a few months later. Thought a change of scenery would help. It hasn't. Sometimes when I'm walking home at night and fog starts rolling in, I'll catch my reflection in a storefront window and swear it moves a second slower than I do. Last week, I woke up to muddy footprints on my porch. Boot prints, the kind we wore on the rescue team. 4 sets. I live alone. And last night, just before dawn, I heard it again. Faint, right outside the window. My own voice, whispering, "Over here."